have a Super Bowl matchup to talk about. We got the Rams versus the Bengals.
Who dey?
Yeah, I think we've got to be. I mean, this podcast has to be rooting for the Bengals, aren't we? I know
I'm
not
rooting for the Bengals, other than the pure laughter of Matt Stafford winning a Super Bowl his first year away from the Lions. I mean, that part of it, that's a little intriguing bite for me.
We will definitely
get podcast.
Yeah, we will definitely get into that. I've got plenty to say on that subject. But what were your thoughts on the championship weekend? I thought it was hard to live up to how great the previous weekend was. Maybe the greatest weekend in football history. But I thought last weekend actually came pretty close with two games. Those are two more compelling games than I thought they would be.
Yeah, I mean, first off, the Bengals Chiefs. I liked the Bengals in that game, and they took care of business. It was a tale of two halves. Basically, the Chiefs dominated the first half. Well, really more like the first quarter. I mean, they put so much points up so quickly, and then never really got back into a rhythm again.
They had a chance at the end of the first half to go up another score, and they botched that. So
right.
Kind of gave all the momentum back to the Bengals, which I was happy about. I didn't really care who won. But I thought it was just a really boring first half, and I thought it was just going to be, a big letdown after the previous weekend. But that second half made it all worthwhile.
Yeah, football's a game of adjustments, and the Bengals made the right adjustments. And I'll give Patrick Mahomes credit for being able to avoid sacks, but I'll also ping him a little bit for not throwing the ball away when he should just throw the ball away.
Yeah,
and that got them in. That got him into some trouble. I believe he had 2 interceptions in the game. So the Bengals played their game, and I think the most heartbreaking moment, which turned out not to be, was when the Bengals fight back. We get to overtime, and we're back to the coin flip, and the Chiefs win the coin flip.
That's a great point. Yeah, I was sure that they had done what we railed against last week so much and just won on a coin flip, but that's not how it played out. And I couldn't have been happier to see both teams actually touch the ball in overtime, because that is far more interesting, far more just, and far more entertaining. And teams can actually touch the ball and have a chance.
And the Bengals, I mean, the KC defense was obviously just too worn down at that point, because Joe Mixon on that last overtime drive just kind of ran at will. He just ran, ran how he wanted to. They ran the ball how they wanted to get down there for like a 12. I think the field goal was from like the 12-yard line or something like that.
It was a chip shot.
Yeah, and
Tony Romo was saying the Bengals are going to the Super Bowl before they even made the kick, which I thought was a little.
He was he was very excitable again that game. Very excitable. He was very excitable again. I was laughing a lot at his giddiness. But that game, like literally, I'm like, wow, that one, both Chiefs games were probably the winners of like the 2 best playoff games. At the same time, it kind of goes back to like the Chiefs not being able to close the deal though. And they've got some things to look at for sure. I mean,
it was weird. You mentioned Pat Mahomes, taking a few sacks. He had so much time to throw on so many of those plays late in the fourth and in overtime. He was just sort of dancing around in the backfield, but it felt like they didn't have a check down system. It's like everybody went deep and he's just like stuck, like everyone's covered, but they had nothing underneath, or nothing, no quick throws, no intermediate. So I felt like it could have been the scheme that was fucking them up, but maybe it was just the superior Bengals defense. I think they only rushed on a lot of that. They were only rushing 3, which explained why he had so much time, but for none of those receivers to be able to get open in that amount of time that he had back there is kind of amazing.
I mean, it was a great counter to a pass-happy offense, just keeping everyone covered up to where he just doesn't feel confident that he can fit the ball in. Now, normally against a lot of teams, we've seen it. When he runs around like that, all of a sudden Tyreek Hill's running wild down the other side. They lose him. He's running free. He's going across the other side of the field to get like some 40-yard completion. But that wasn't the case.
or Kelsey over the middle, or
Yeah.
that's the beauty of the KC offense, is that they have so many different options like that, and they were all completely thwarted down the stretch. So that I think Andy Reid's going to be going back to the drawing board on that, trying to figure that out, because I mean, whatever the Bengals were doing, every team in the AFC is going to pick up on and emulate that. So
yeah, I mean, I think for the if you have a good enough front four, which I think are probably the teams that the Chiefs struggled with. If you have a good enough front four to cause pressure, then you can beat the Chiefs. If you can't get home with that, if you got to start bringing extra guys, then you're going to get in a world of trouble, because they have too many weapons and something's going to be open. So, but I thought it was a great game. Super exciting. I'm super happy for the Bengals. I don't know why. I just am. I like their player. I like their players, their team, their young team. So that's kind of exciting. So,
well, I look at the Bengals as a beacon of hope. 2 years ago, they were 2-14. Last year, they were 4-11-1, which sounds eerily familiar to my Lions, 3-13-1. So in that short span of time, the Bengals were able to turn it around completely, and now they're in the fucking Super Bowl. So does that mean there's a chance for my Detroit Lions?
Well, there could be. It was a beacon of hope was Matt Stafford showing up to the Rams, right? Because now Matt Stafford, 1 year removed from the Lions, is heading to the Super Bowl.
He made the Super Bowl on the exact anniversary of the Lions trading him.
Oh,
1 year anniversary.
I had no idea about that. Look at that. That's the insider information you get when you have a Lions fan on the podcast with you.
Quite amazing. Yes, much to my consternation, Matt Stafford and the Rams are now in the Super Bowl. Mainly, I've beaten this point into the ground, but I want the Lions to have the best draft pick out of this trade, and now they have the worst potential draft pick out of this trade. It is literally the worst case SOL scenario.
It is. It has gotten really bad now.
Even when the playoffs started, the Lions still had a chance at the number 23 pick overall, and now they have at best the 31st or the 32nd pick. So either way, it's essentially a second round pick. And it's just unbelievable SOL scenario. Of course, there was always the potential that you trade a good quarterback to a good team in the Rams, and they might go to the Super Bowl. The Lions knew that when it happened. That is why they wanted the second first round pick next year as well as a third round pick to insulate themselves from that. But it is literally turning out as badly as this possibly can, as now not only Matt Stafford gets to celebrate going to the Super Bowl, the narrative has now shifted to the point where people are revising history and saying the Lions deserve all the blame for the 12 years of ineptitude while Matt Stafford was there, never winning a big game.
It is a bit of an indictment on your organization.
I will gladly take that indictment, and I don't want to mince words or confuse people here. I am not saying by any means the Lions are blameless. I just want Matt Stafford to share some of the blame for the ineptitude.
Definitely.
And that is not happening right now, and that's what's frustrating when you look at national media, when you listen to Detroit Sports Talk Radio, when you see social media. Matt Stafford is getting all the accolades. Everyone is shitting on the Lions.
Matt Stafford was butterfingers away from being the GOAT in a negative way in that game.
I'm going to get to that for sure, but that is the irony of ironies. But I just want to make sure it is known that I think, on a percentage scale, the Lions are 75% to blame for the 12 years of the Matt Stafford era for their ineptitude, and I'm going to give Matt Stafford 25% of the blame. The Lions are the worst franchise maybe in all of sports. I'm not letting them off the hook. they deserve the lion's share of the blame. See what I did there?
I see what you did there. Whoa!
But Stafford is not. He's not above reproach in this. He showed an incredible ability to make boneheaded throws at the worst possible moment in the biggest games. and that just crushed, when the Lions somehow put everything together and got themselves into a good position, then Stafford would fuck it up. And the irony of ironies that you mentioned, that same scenario played itself out in this NFC Championship game with Matt Stafford throwing the same inexplicable, boneheaded, not necessary 60-yard pass down the field to nobody but the defense, down 3 with 10 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, that should have ended the game, essentially. And the 49ers dropped the fucking ball.
I
hit him right in the chest.
I mean, it was like essentially, he threw the ball down the middle of the field to the safety.
Yes.
Right to the safety. The safety was there.
There was like no one even around. He was waiting for it.
Yeah, he wasn't even for it. He's standing there like this. Oh my God, I can't believe. I hope I don't drop this. I mean, that's basically.
I have seen that over and over again in big games for the Lions over the previous 12 years. And it was playing out the exact same way that I've been talking about would happen with Stafford in these playoffs at some point. And I literally watched it happen, and he dropped the fucking ball. So now that narrative, this is why that moment changes this whole narrative that I've been fighting against. If he catches that ball, then Matt Stafford isn't off the hook. Matt Stafford gets a portion of the blame. It wouldn't shift in my mind either. It'd still be 75-25 Lions, but now it is 100% Lions and 0% Matt Stafford. And that is what I'm frustrated by, beyond getting the shittier draft picks every time he wins. But that is the narrative I'm going to rail against. You're going to see it over these next 2 weeks, week and a half now. That is another reason why I didn't want Matt Stafford to make this Super Bowl, because all we're going to see in coverage of this pre-game coverage is all about how shitty the Lions were and how Matt Stafford is the greatest quarterback of all time, and we were just holding him down. It's just not true. It's not 100% the case. So that's what I wanted to spell out. I'm glad you at least as a neutral observer can appreciate what I'm saying. I don't know how much you agree with my percentages.
I mean, I guess they're fine. I'm not here. I think the narrative is hilarious. I understand, on the surface where it comes from. That guy was making fun, having some fun with you. The guy's one year removed and he's going to the Super Bowl. So obviously the Lions suck, but we already know the Lions suck, and the Lions knew they sucked, and that's why they tore. That's why they tore everything up this year or last year, and are trying to move the football team in the right direction, and it looks like it's going that way. So it's like
they finally did the right thing. This is the first time they've ever basically rebuilt and not tried to rebuild on the fly. They sold their greatest asset in an effort to build future assets and build up the team from the draft and through young players. And so I was on board with that. And the fact that they're doing that and it's backfired on them, just not 100%. They're still getting the draft picks, but they're essentially getting a second round pick instead of a first round pick this year.
Yeah, it's kind of like they have the second pick, but it's kind of like having the second pick in a fantasy draft, essentially. You wait all that time and then you get like back-to-back picks, basically.
Yeah, the snake draft.
The snake draft. I mean, well, because what they're going to end up with, they're going to probably, if let's say the Rams win, let's say worst case scenario, Rams win the Super Bowl, they're going to have 3 picks in the next 2 rounds. Or the next 3 rounds. They're going to have 2 picks in the next 3 rounds.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they have that. Yeah, they've got that, but then they'll have the 3rd round pick as well.
Well, no. What I'm saying
is they have 5 picks in the first 100, I think, is how it works.
Yeah, because they'll have the last pick of the first round and the second pick of the second round.
Right.
Yeah. So,
the other frustrating part of this whole scenario is General Manager Brad Holmes was on the radio this week being interviewed and was asked if Matt Stafford had any influence on where he was being traded. And he wouldn't come out and say that Matt Stafford, he didn't deny that Stafford had a large influence on it. He basically said Matt Stafford was cooperative in the process. So for Brad Holmes not to come out and adamantly deny that Matt Stafford had any role in deciding where he was actually traded to is pretty embarrassing for an already embarrassing organization, that they would let the player decide against potentially the interests of the franchise, where famously the report was leaked that the Lions had the chance to trade with the Carolina Panthers for the number 8 pick in this year's draft. Last year's draft, it was a sure thing. It wasn't based on where the Panthers would finish. They would have last year's number 8 pick and Teddy Bridgewater for Matt Stafford. And you can measure the value of, what 2 first-round draft picks from the Rams and a third-round pick would be versus the guaranteed number 8 pick last year and Teddy Bridgewater. But now that it's playing out like this, that we're not getting that first-round pick, it's, like I said, a second-round pick. It makes you question, would that have been better to do? And I think it's pretty obvious it would have been better in hindsight. Granted, that's 2020 hindsight, but what the Lions would have done in last year, quite possibly would have done in last year's draft is, draft Penei Sewell with the number 6 pick. Then they'd have the number 8. They would get Micah Parsons, most likely. Your Micah Parsons, who I know you adore on your Dallas Cowboys. Can you imagine what that draft haul would look like going forward for the Lions? How different that defense would have looked this year with what looks like a generational talent with Parsons there. And, Teddy Bridgewater is, I think probably a step up from Jared Goff, but, we'd be looking for a quarterback in the future anyway. So,
right.
It just is frustrating that you hear the Lions are still shooting themselves in the foot. They have a bad history with their star players leaving the organization. Barry Sanders famously being so frustrated with the Lions and his future in football that he just quit and sent in his resignation letter with a fax to the Lions. There's still acrimony between Calvin Johnson and the Lions that is still playing out even this season, where he's demanding the signing bonus be returned to him that the Lions took away from him when he prematurely retired. So it almost feels like the Lions were trying to do Matt Stafford a solid by granting him his wish to go to Los Angeles instead of Carolina. But that's almost erring too far on the side of being a generous organization instead of being stingy like they have been. And now they're shooting themselves in the foot by doing it. So it's just another layer of SOL, another frustrating chapter to this story, and another reason why I cannot get away from Matt Stafford as much as I'd like. I'm going to be seeing him plastered all over my television for the next 2 weeks, and I'm assuming if all things go according to SOL, he will indeed win the Super Bowl, win the MVP, and he will go about his life and leave us Lions fans crying in the background.
Wow. Jeez. I don't even know what to say to that, but
I have a way to punctuate this SOL segment for the week that'll make you put a smile on your face at least. We do need to wish 81-year-old Wayne Fontes a happy birthday, as his birthday is indeed on February 2nd, Groundhog's Day.
Oh, Fonzie.
So yes, favorite of the podcast, Wayne Fontes. Happy birthday, happy 81. I'm glad you're still kicking.
I always ask myself in tough situations, what would Wayne Fontes do?
Yes, it's good advice.
Yes.
Word Hole Media.